just in school in my massive lecture room, and I'm just going to talk about dampening the thumb. So I'm using the Bach Cello Suite No. 1, the Prelude, my arrangement of it, and really this can apply to any piece that requires dampening of a bass note. In this case, I'll include this, a copy of the score when I put it on Patreon, is you'll notice that the D, the first note, this one, is a double rhythm. So it's part of a 16th note pattern, or in this country they say let's see, what do they call them? Oh, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna stick to the American terms. 16th notes, so you've got 4 16th notes with a slur. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the bass note, this one, is also, like I said, a 2 note. It's a crotchet or a quarter note. So 1, E, and A. So, and then that's it. Then there is a quarter note rest after the D, the open D. So you're supposed to dampen that. So what happens after that, you need to kill that open string. The reason why we're doing that is because in the original cello suite, these notes, none of them actually have a double bass note. It's actually all just 16th notes. But the cello is a lot more resonant than that of a classical guitar. So what we can do to imitate the resonance of a cello is we allow some of our bass notes, this one and this one, especially that low D. This low D gets such a great, that D really growls on the guitar, the low D. So that allows us to get that resonance that we so crave from the original instrument. The reason why we're dampening it is because if we don't, it sounds like this, which some people might like. I'll just play what it sounds like without dampening it. So now, you might think, well, that sounds actually quite good. And in some ways, it actually does, especially on those first 4 bars of music with that D, that ping-pongs back and forth. When I equate the D, or any of these bass notes, is let's say a pianist putting the pedal down, or the right pedal, and you get this kind of all the notes bleeding into each other. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. It's just constant resonating, and there's no stopping of the bass note. It just constantly bleeds from one note to the next. Okay, so you're probably thinking, all right, what's the big deal? Well, we don't always want the pedal on the piano constantly sitting there, letting everything ring through. But something more important than that is sometimes the bass note is not part of the harmony. And most of the cases in the first page, your bass note tends to be part of it. So for example, this A, that A is, and most of it is part of that. There's only one spot we have the passing D. Other than that note, this A is part of that harmony. Okay, so you're thinking, great, still don't see a problem. Well, if you have the music and you look at bar 9, you have this E in the bass. Now if you look at, after the 8 notes, you've got a half rest on the D. Well, on my left hand, I can't actually hold on to this. I have to let go in order to do the rest, okay? So that's problematic. That means that bass note isn't going to be held the whole time. Also on bar 11, if you look at bar 11, this F sharp, oh, sorry, wrong one. I have to let go on the open B. Say here on the D sharp. So now we have a few inconsistencies where the guitar gets in the way, meaning my technique is the fact that I can't hold on to a finger. I don't have enough fingers. I only have 4 guys. So I can't hold on to the bass note and let it ring. So you're not consistent. In Bach, you must be consistent and when your note is ringing. So you can't be like, oh, this note's going to ring, I'm going to have this pattern and have that note ring through all the time, but then unfortunately I have to let go of this note. So, oh well, we'll lose that. Well, no, you have to be consistent. So if you've got a half note, you need to make sure you kill it on the after 2 beats. Okay, so basically what we've designed is to make sure that the patterns match up. So when you have a quarter note bass, you kill it on the quarter note rest. If you've got a half note rest, you kill it on the a half note rest. A half note, and you kill it on the half rest. I'll get there eventually. Okay, so those are your 2 patterns. If you look at the patterns, you've got bar 9 and 10 is one pattern. That's that held note. I try to hold on to that long as possible, and when I let go, it's on that E. So it's almost to the end of that 8-note pattern. And you'll notice that the beginning of the piece, bar 1 through 4, you have the quarter note, and then the quarter rest, where you kill the note, right? So those are the 2 big patterns in this piece. It's very rare. Matter of fact, I'm trying to look at the score here. There might be a few places where I have, no, I don't think so. I don't have any whole notes where I hold it. Okay, just until the very last bar of the piece, but that's the last note, and it is held for the entire measure. Okay, so we try to be consistent in our bass notes. In Bach, you just need to be very consistent. If you look at most of the lute suites, a lot of times those bass notes, there tends to be some kind of 2 or 3 or 4 patterns going on throughout the piece. In this case, there's 2 patterns. There's the quarter note, followed by the quarter rest, or you've got the half note, or you kill it, okay, on the half rest there, half note to half rest. So those are your 2 patterns, and those are the reasons behind it. As a teacher, I don't like to say you have to do that because I said so. That's not how that music works. It's the same thing with telling your kid, oh, you can't do that because I said so. There should be a reason why we're doing it. So I've given you several reasons. One, it's so that the music doesn't sound like soup, or like I equated to the pedal on the piano where you're just letting all the notes ring through. And 2, because you need to be consistent with when notes are held, that you're just not holding some notes 2 beats, some notes 3 beats, some notes 1 beat, sometimes not. And Bach, there should be some consistency. He was all about symbology. Bach was all about having things in 3s, 5s, and 7s. He liked things to be symmetrical in his music. And I think that, and also there's some clarity. Baroque music, this would have been a cello or harpsichord, and even though the cello is very, very resonant, there is still some clarity on the bowed instrument that, as a guitar, we sometimes lack that clarity unless you have a spruce top. Sometimes the notes kind of run in as if the pedal was down, so we just have to be a little careful about that we hear the melody very clearly and it doesn't get lost in a sea of bass notes. So hopefully that helps on that, and then I'll show you the how-to. All right, so I wanted to get as close as possible so you can really see my thumb. So in the beginning, you have 4 notes on the Bach. You have 1, 2, 1, sorry, I put my left hand down now. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the slur, okay? Now when you get to the next note, you'll notice that my thumb has touched the string, but it's not lingering on the string. This is the problem sometimes with guitar, so I'll do this. I'll cut it, and they'll just sit there, and then it's like, oh, I got the next one. And I'll cut it, and they sit there. And I was like, oh, and they panic, and they sit there, now they're late for the next bass note. Okay, once you cut the note, it's as if, this is what I was telling my students, is after you play the note, it's as if when you put it down, you're going to replay it. So watch. I'm gonna actually play the bass note. Okay, so again. So I'm going to play instead of putting it down. So it's that same kind of thing that you're doing. So instead of playing the note, we're going to sit on the string. Ready? So pretend to play, but you didn't. When you play a note, your thumb goes through the string, and it ends up hitting the index finger, and then it relaxes, right? So you want to do the same thing. If you're going to sit on a string, then you get rid of it. What you're doing is the difference between plucking a bass note and then planting on the string and stopping the ringing. Okay? Notice that after I touched it, it's off the string. Okay? That's how I equate it to. I equate it to as if I was about to play. So try it a few times. If you've got the Bach in front of you, and just bar 1, I'm just doing the first 5, 6 notes of the piece. So now play the D. Okay, that's what that should feel like, 'cause that's if you just played it. Now we're going to do it without actually playing the note. Just pretend to play the D, ready? And then we touch it, and then we let go. And that would be no different if you're doing it on the 6th string. So let's try bar 1, beat 3, when you have the low D. I'm trying to get a little closer. So I play my D, 1, 2, 3, slur, and now you're going to put your thumb down, and then you let go. Okay, I'll be a little bit more precise. Slur. Now you're going to touch, and then you let go. So as if you played it. Let's try that with actually playing the D again a second time, so you can see the difference between the two. Okay. So now you're going to play the D with the A finger. So that's what that feels like. Now we're not going to play the D on the 6th string. So now we plant the thumb, and then you get rid of it, as if you just played it. And that's actually it. That's what makes it easy. Now the thing about it is a lot of times we want to make things complicated, and we'll plant our thumb early. That's a lot of work. If I were you, I wouldn't do any planting. If you're going to play Bach or any of these kinds of complicated pieces, even this cello suite, I know a lot of people criticize that this is not the hardest Bach piece ever. It's still Bach, and it's still not easy. There's still a lot of challenges in any Bach. My advice to you is if your right hand can't handle having your thumb sitting on a string, I wouldn't play Bach, because it gets way too complex. Once you play the note off the string, cut, off the string, your hand needs to be relaxed, and you shouldn't be dependent on always have your thumb on a bass string. So there you go. That concludes my story on bass strings and muting.